Get up and rebuild yourself. You may have fallen. You may have broken everything you once called life, and maybe, just maybe, you're sitting in the ruins, wondering how in the world you got here. But I will tell you this, the greater tragedy is not that you fell. The greater tragedy is if you choose to stay down. The first keynote, a solemn call to self-examination, is not simply about looking in the mirror and noticing the mess. It's far more profound than that. It's about silencing the noise, shutting the door, and confronting the darkest, most hidden corners of who you really are. This is the kind of self-examination that doesn't care for comfort or image. It doesn't flatter, it exposes, it drags into the light what you've kept buried beneath layers of excuses, distractions, and false peace. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding this level of honesty. They learn how to smile while they're dying inside. They learn how to blame others, how to blame circumstances, how to build a fortress around their failures so no one, not even they, have to deal with the real reasons for their downfall. But rebuilding can't happen without demolition. You can't build on a foundation that's cracked and rotting. That's why the first step is not forward, it's downward. It's inward. You have to go to the lowest, truest parts of yourself and ask the hard questions. Who am I really? What choices have brought me here? What have I become? And who have I been lying to all this time? This is not self-hatred. This is not wallowing. This is not some emotional spiral into despair. This is about finally getting serious. It's about refusing to accept shallow answers and quick fixes. Because if the problem runs deep, then so must the healing. And the truth is, most people don't want to change. They want relief. They want the pain to go away, but they don't want to face the parts of themselves that caused it. That's why this kind of self-examination must be solemn, not casual, not rushed, not half-hearted. You have to be willing to sit in the silence, to let the weight of your condition rest on you until you can't pretend anymore. There's something powerful about reaching that place. It's where the masks come off. It's where the truth finally has space to speak. And most times, the truth is not loud. It's not theatrical. It's quiet. It's steady. It whispers things you've tried to ignore. You've been proud. You've been selfish. You've turned your back on what you knew was right. And if you listen, really listen, it begins to break you, but in the best way possible. Because in that brokenness, something beautiful begins. Clarity. Clarity about what matters, about what's been lost, about what needs to be restored. But you can't rush through it. You can't jump straight to solutions. People try to do that. They want to skip the pain, skip the process. They want to patch the cracks and paint over the stains, but real change doesn't come that way. Rebuilding doesn't start with new plans and big dreams. It starts with the hard, unglamorous work of looking in the mirror and refusing to lie, of admitting the bitterness, the pride, the apathy, of naming your sin. Not vaguely, not in passing, but with clarity and conviction. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe everything has fallen apart, and you don't know what to do next. Maybe you feel like you've lost yourself. The temptation will be to act strong, to get busy, to keep moving so you don't have to think too deeply. But don't do it. Don't run from this moment. Let it break you. Let it slow you down. Let it reveal everything you've been trying to hide. Because until that happens, you're not ready to rebuild. You're just rearranging the rubble. There's something sacred about this kind of honesty. It's not easy, it hurts, but it's necessary. It strips you of your illusions and pride. It brings you face to face with your desperate need, and that is exactly where true restoration begins. Not in strength, but in surrender. Not in confidence, but in confession. It is the quiet, trembling place where you stop trying to justify yourself, and you finally admit what's been wrong. Not just with your circumstances, but with you. And if you're willing to go there, if you're willing to be honest before anything else, then something begins to shift, not on the outside, but on the inside. The ground begins to clear, the lies lose their power. And for the first time in a long time, you see the truth. You are not okay, and that's okay to admit. In fact, it's the only way forward. This is not a speech meant to inspire with shallow promises or slick motivation. This is a cry from the heart to stop pretending, to stop running. To look yourself in the eye and say it's time. Time to stop the cycle. Time to stop blaming everyone and everything else. Time to stop wearing a mask. Because the longer you avoid this moment, the deeper the wound becomes. And the longer you wait to face it, the harder it is to rebuild. But it starts here, with truth, with solemn, sacred, unfiltered truth. A kind of truth that doesn't crush you to leave you hopeless, but humbles you to make you whole. A kind of truth that leads not to shame, but to a better foundation. One not built on fantasy or pride, but on something real. That is the beginning of rebuilding. Not when you stand up, but when you look down and see the truth about what's broken. And choose, at last, to face it. There comes a time when soft words just won't do anymore. When the sugar-coated advice and the watered-down encouragement only serve to deepen the problem instead of healing it. That's when you need something harder, sharper. That's when you need truth, not dressed up, not softened, not made to sound polite or palatable. Just the raw, clear, uncompromising truth. It might sting, it might even break you, but it's the only thing powerful enough to set you free. Because what you're up against isn't just pain or failure or disappointment. It's deception, and you can't fight deception with vague half-truths or nice-sounding lies. You fight it with light, with clarity, with the kind of truth that doesn't flinch when it cuts. The problem is, we've been taught to avoid anything that feels harsh. We're afraid of offending, we're afraid of being too intense. So we end up settling for words that feel safe, comfortable, non-threatening. We speak in circles. We disguise warnings as suggestions. We offer comfort when what's needed is confrontation. But when your life has fallen apart, when you're surrounded by the wreckage of your choices or the crushing weight of circumstances, you don't need a padded message. You need clarity. You need someone to look you in the eye and say what no one else has the courage to say. You need truth that won't bend just to make you feel better, and I'll say it clearly, this kind of truth doesn't care about your feelings in the moment. It cares about your soul. It's not cruel, it's not cold, but it is bold. It speaks not to flatter you, but to wake you up. It calls sin what it is. It names pride without apology. It refuses to compromise with the standards of this world. It doesn't twist to fit into your preferences or comfort zones. It just stands pure, unchanging, unmoved by your reactions, because truth was never meant to make you feel good. It was meant to make you free. There's a reason so many people reject this kind of truth.
It doesn't stroke your ego. It doesn't cater to your desires. It exposes. It offends. It calls things out that you've tried hard to excuse. It tears down the nice little stories you've told yourself to avoid facing what's really wrong.
It confronts you, and for many, that confrontation feels too painful, too heavy, so they turn away. They surround themselves with people who will say what they want to hear. They stay in environments where truth is dressed up, made vague, stripped of its power. But here's the problem. When you do that, you never change. You might feel better for a moment, but you stay stuck, you stay broken, because nothing gets uprooted, nothing gets healed. Real change starts when the truth is spoken without compromise. When someone says enough, stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending this isn't your fault. Stop acting like you're the victim in a story you've been writing all along. That's not cruelty. That's love with a backbone. That's the kind of truth that doesn't just sit next to you while you drown. It throws you a rope, even if that rope burns your hands a little on the way up. Some people will hear this and call it judgmental. Too harsh, but what they don't understand is that the stakes are too high for shallow words. This is about your life, your soul, your future, and if someone truly loves you, they'll risk your offense for the sake of your freedom. They'll say what needs to be said even if it costs them your approval. They won't soften the message to make it easier to swallow. They'll speak the truth in a way that pierces, because it's meant to break through everything you've used to protect yourself from change. This is what it means to be confronted by uncompromising truth. It doesn't adjust itself to your comfort level. It calls you to rise above it. It doesn't play by your rules or follow your timetable. It breaks into your life like a storm and says, "This is what's real. This is what's wrong, and this is what must change. And you can resist it. You can harden your heart. You can walk away. But if you do, understand this. You're not walking away from judgment. You're walking away from rescue, because truth is not your enemy. It is your only hope, and maybe that's what you've needed all along. Not another motivational quote, not another gentle nudge, but a wake-up call. Something that grabs you by the shoulders and shakes you. Something that says, you've been living in a fog. You've been hiding. You've been blaming others, blaming God, blaming the world. But the truth is, you need to change. You need to repent. You need to stop running and start rebuilding. That kind of truth doesn't win popularity contests, but it does save lives. We live in a world where everything is negotiable. Standards are blurred. Convictions are labeled as narrow-minded. But truth, real, unchanging, eternal truth, doesn't play that game. It doesn't shift with culture. It doesn't evolve with public opinion. It stands, and it calls you to stand with it, even when it's unpopular, even when it hurts, because when everything else crumbles, truth remains. And if you build on that, if you surrender to that, then no matter how far you've fallen, there's still hope. But it begins here, with a hard, clear, uncompromising look at what's real. So ask yourself, have you really been facing the truth? Or have you just been gathering words that make you feel okay for another day? Are you willing to be offended if it means being set free? Are you willing to let the truth cut you if it means it can heal you? Because in the end, the truth that wounds you today may be the only thing strong enough to save you tomorrow. There's a weight you can feel when something really matters. It presses on your chest. It interrupts your thoughts. It keeps you awake even when you're exhausted. That's what urgency feels like. Not panic, not anxiety, but an undeniable awareness that something must be done. And it must be done now. And when that urgency is not just about your circumstances, but about your soul, it becomes something deeper. It becomes moral. It becomes spiritual. It's no longer about simply fixing a situation or avoiding pain. It's about waking up to the fact that your life is not a game, that your choices echo far beyond the moment, that there's something bigger at stake than just comfort, success, or reputation. It's about realizing that delay is dangerous, that waiting is not neutral, that every hour you spend avoiding the truth is another hour spent drifting further away from who you were created to be. Most people don't live with this kind of urgency. They live like they have all the time in the world, like every mistake can be fixed later, like every wrong turn can be corrected eventually. But that kind of thinking is not only reckless, it's a lie. Because you don't know how much time you have, you don't know when your window to turn things around will close. And even if you live another 50 years, you don't know how hard your heart will become in that time. You don't know how numb you'll grow to the truth the longer you resist it. That's why the moment to change is not tomorrow, it's not later, it's now, while your heart still feels the weight of what's wrong, while your conscience still stirs, while you still hear the quiet voice in your soul telling you this isn't the way. There's a spiritual danger in delay. The more you ignore the conviction, the more you train yourself to live without it. The more you put off repentance, the easier it becomes to justify the way things are. And slowly, almost without noticing, you begin to settle. You start to accept the brokenness. You start calling your compromises growth. You start calling your silence wisdom. And the urgency fades. Not because the danger is gone, but because you've gotten used to living in it. That's the slow death most people never see coming. Not a sudden fall, but a quiet, gradual drift away from truth. That's why you need to feel this urgency, not just in your mind, but in your bones. You need to let it shake you, let it bother you, let it move you out of your comfort and into action. This isn't about emotionalism, it's about clarity, the clarity to see that there are eternal things at stake in your everyday decisions. That every time you choose pride over humility, you're not just hurting yourself, you're shaping your soul. Every time you refuse to forgive, you're not just being stubborn. You're building a wall between you and the very grace you claim to believe in. This isn't about being dramatic. It's about being honest. Honest about what happens when you ignore the call to turn, to change, to rebuild. There's something powerful about recognizing that your life has weight, that your choices matter beyond the moment, and when you feel that, it does something to you. It changes how you speak, how you treat people, how you spend your time. It brings a seriousness, not a heaviness that crushes, but a fire that refines. It makes you look at the things you've been tolerating, the bitterness, the laziness, the compromise, and it makes you ask, how much longer am I going to let this rule me? How much more of my life am I going to waste pretending that someday is a plan? You can't afford to wait, not because fear is chasing you, but because truth is calling you, because something real is being offered, and it won't wait forever. This moment, this conviction you feel even now, it's not guaranteed to return. That stirring in your soul, that awareness that something has to change, that's a gift. And like all gifts, it can be lost. If you ignore it long enough, it will go quiet. If you bury it under enough excuses, it will stop knocking. And when that happens, you won't even know what you've lost. That's the urgency we're talking about. Not the frantic energy of someone running from consequences, but the clear-eyed resolve of someone who finally understands what's at stake. It's not about rushing. It's about refusing to stay asleep. It's about waking up to the fact that you're in a war whether you want to be or not. A war for your character, for your future, for your soul. And every day you delay is a day the enemy gains ground, not in a dramatic, visible way, but in the quiet choices that add up to a life far from what you were meant to live. You've got to feel that. You've got to let it break through the numbness, the routine, the denial. You've got to let the weight of eternity settle on your shoulders, not to crush you, but to anchor you, to remind you that this matters, that the way you live matters, that your decisions carry consequences that don't just affect you, but ripple outward into every life you touch. This isn't just about getting your life together. It's about walking in truth, in purpose, in the kind of integrity that lasts beyond this world. And you can't wait for the perfect moment. You can't wait until you feel ready, or until things get easier. That moment may never come, but this moment, it's here right now. And if you feel that pull in your chest, that ache in your soul, then don't ignore it. Don't brush it off. That's not emotion. That's mercy. That's grace reaching out to you while you still have time to respond, while your heart is still soft enough to break, while your ears are still open enough to hear. This is not the time to hesitate. This is not the time to make deals with the truth or ask for more signs. You already know. Deep down, you already know. You know what needs to change. You know what needs to be let go. You know the lies you've believed, the fears you've followed, the things you've used to keep God at arm's length. And if you know, then act. Don't wait to feel more. Don't wait to understand everything. Obey the light you have right now. Take the step you know you're being called to take, because there is no neutral ground here. You're either moving closer to truth or drifting further from it. There is no pause button, no safe zone. The clock is ticking, not out of threat, but out of love. You have today. You have this moment. And that may be more than some people ever get. So feel the urgency. Let it drive you to humility. Let it drive you to rebuild. Not someday, not eventually, but now. There's a point in life where you finally realize that your strength isn't enough. Your strategies, your motivation, your self-discipline, your knowledge, they all reach their limits. You can read every book, listen to every podcast, build every routine, and still feel empty. Still fall back into the same patterns. Still find yourself crying at night because all your effort has gotten you nowhere. That's the moment the world tells you to try harder, to believe in yourself more, to push through. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if the breakthrough doesn't come from digging deeper into your own strength, but by admitting your weakness and falling into something greater? We live in a culture addicted to self-help. Every bookstore, every feed, every guru says the same thing. You are the answer. You are enough. You just need to unlock your potential. But that message, however inspiring it sounds, can't save a soul because it's built on a lie. You were never meant to carry yourself. You were never designed to fix yourself. You were created to depend, to lean, to surrender, not in some vague spiritual way, but in a real, daily, desperate need for the power and presence of God. Because when everything falls apart, when the weight of your failure finally breaks you down, the last thing you need is another slogan about self-empowerment. You need something stronger than you. You need someone stronger than you. There is a beauty in reaching the end of yourself, not because the end is pretty. It's usually messy and painful, but because that's where dependence begins. That's where real help shows up. Not the kind of help that tells you to pull yourself up, but the kind that kneels down in your lowest place and says, "I've got you." That's what divine dependence is. It's not weakness, it's honesty. It's the humble admission that your own strength is broken, your will is fractured, and your wisdom isn't enough to guide you out of the darkness. It's the moment you say, "I can't do this, not alone, not anymore." And there's no shame in that. In fact, that's the most honest thing you can say, because all your striving, all your planning, all your effort to be good enough, it's not working. If it was, you wouldn't be here wrestling with the same weight, the same wounds, the same habits. Self-help teaches you to manage the mess. Divine dependence invites you to be transformed. Self-help teaches you to mask your pain. Divine dependence heals it. It doesn't ask you to pretend. It asks you to come as you are, bruised, broken, and empty, and trust that grace can do what grit never could. The world will call that weakness. It'll say you're giving up, quitting on yourself, but it's not quitting. It's surrender, and surrender is not passive. It's not sitting back and doing nothing. It's handing over control to the only one worthy of it. It's choosing to walk, not in your own might, but in the strength of someone greater. It's no longer about making yourself better. It's about being made new, and that kind of transformation doesn't come from within. It comes from above. That's where most people struggle, because we like control. We like to feel capable. We want to be the hero of our own story. But the truth is, you were never meant to be, and that's not an insult. That's freedom, because being the hero is exhausting. Trying to carry your own redemption will crush you. Trying to clean yourself up before you come to God will keep you trapped in shame forever. But when you stop trying to be strong, when you fall to your knees and say, "I need help," that's when the power comes. Not your power, His, and that power doesn't just get you through the day. It changes everything. It gives you a new heart, a new mind, a new direction. It puts strength in your bones that you didn't earn. It puts peace in your soul that you couldn't find. It gives you a reason to keep going that isn't built on your performance, but on His promises. That's divine dependence. It's not living in defeat. It's living in constant connection to the source of real life. It's not motivational, it's miraculous, but it requires humility, and humility is not easy, especially when everything inside you is screaming, "You've got this." But maybe you don't. Maybe the most courageous thing you can do is stop pretending you're okay. Maybe faith looks like admitting your limits. Maybe freedom comes not when you take control, but when you finally let go of it. You see, when you depend on God, you're not giving up your will. You're aligning it. You're not losing your identity. You're finding it, and you're not becoming weaker. You're becoming whole, because divine dependence doesn't make you helpless. It makes you unstoppable, not because of who you are, but because of who walks with you. It's not you against the world anymore. It's you walking in step with the one who holds the world in his hands. This is what separates a temporary fix from lasting change. Self-help might help you start over, but divine dependence gives you the strength to stay the course. It walks with you in the dark. It picks you up when you fall again. It doesn't shame you for being weak. It welcomes you with grace. It reminds you that even when you can't, He still can, and that's not just a comfort. It's the foundation of everything. So if you're tired, truly tired, of trying to fix yourself, if you're worn out from running in circles, if your soul is screaming for something real, then stop chasing strength in yourself. Lay it down. Stop looking inward for salvation and start looking upward. You don't need another method. You need a Savior. You don't need another plan. You need a person, one who knows your pain, one who sees your failure. One who can take the shattered pieces of your life and make something holy out of them. Because in the end, this isn't about your best effort. It's about your deepest need, and that need will never be filled by self-help. It will only be filled by surrender, a quiet, desperate, honest surrender to the one who can do what you never could. That's divine dependence. That's where the rebuilding truly begins. Hope doesn't usually come the way we expect. We think it shows up clean, with light pouring in from the sky, wrapped in warmth and peace. We think hope is something we feel only after the pain is over, something we can hold when everything's finally fixed. But real hope, honest, unshakable hope, it often rises up from the ruins. It's born in the middle of the breaking, not after it. It doesn't wait until you've gotten it all together. It finds you while everything's still falling apart. That's the strange, upside-down way that hope works. It grows best in the soil of brokenness. There's something about being broken that makes space for what is real. When all your strength has run out, when the image you've been holding up finally cracks, when the things you once counted on have crumbled, there's no more room for pretending. The masks fall off, the noise quiets, and in that exposed, raw place, you begin to see more clearly than you ever did before. You start to see that hope was never meant to be a feeling. It was never meant to be something you conjure up by thinking positive thoughts or ignoring the darkness around you. Hope is a lifeline. It's a whisper in your soul that says, this isn't the end. And not because you've got the strength to change it, but because even here, especially here, God is not done. Brokenness has a way of refining you. It strips away the shallow things you used to lean on. It shows you what matters. It makes you desperate, and that desperation is a gift. Because only when you're desperate do you finally reach for something outside yourself. Only when your hands are empty do you finally learn what it means to receive, and that's where hope enters, not as a reward for being strong, but as mercy for being weak. Hope doesn't show up because you earned it. It shows up because you need it, and the deeper the need, the deeper the hope can run. There are people who walk through life untouched, or so it seems. They wear their success like armor. They speak with confidence. But when the storms hit, and they always do, that kind of strength shatters fast, because it's built on appearance, not substance. But the one who has been broken and remade, the one who has wrestled through despair and still chooses to believe, there's a different kind of fire in that person. A steady flame, a grounded peace, not because the pain didn't matter, but because it taught them where true hope is found, in the ashes, not apart from them. Hope through brokenness isn't about denying the hurt. It's not about pretending that the betrayal didn't cut deep, or the loss didn't leave you shattered. It's about believing that the story isn't over just because it's been torn apart. It's about trusting that something beautiful can be born from the pieces. That the broken ground you're standing on might just be the place where new life begins, and that doesn't mean the pain is good. It means the pain is not wasted. It means there is redemption even in the things you never would have chosen. That's what gives hope its power. Not that it avoids suffering, but that it survives it. That it shines brightest in the dark. That it holds on when everything else lets go. It doesn't need the storm to stop to be real. It just needs a reason to keep going, and when your reason isn't in your circumstances, when it's rooted in something higher, deeper, eternal, then no amount of breaking can take it from you. There are moments when everything in you wants to give up. When the weight of what you've lost or what you've become feels too heavy to carry, when you've prayed and waited and tried and nothing's changed, those are the moments where hope feels impossible, but those are also the moments when hope becomes real. Because if you can still choose to believe that there's meaning in the pain, that there's purpose in the waiting, that there's a hand still holding yours even when you can't feel it, then that hope is not shallow. It's not manufactured, it's sacred, It's born in fire, and some of the most powerful people you'll ever meet are not the ones with the cleanest stories. They're the ones with scars. The ones who have wept on the floor and questioned everything, and still found the strength to get up again. Not because they were strong, but because they discovered strength wasn't the point. Dependence was. Because they learned that being broken didn't disqualify them from hope. It qualified them for it. It opened them to it. It made them ready for what could never be earned through ease. Hope through brokenness doesn't mean the pain is gone. It means the pain is held. It means there is someone greater walking through it with you. Someone who doesn't leave when the tears fall. Someone who speaks into the silence. Someone who looks at the shattered parts of your story and doesn't turn away, but draws near. That's what sustains you, not the absence of suffering, but the presence of God in the middle of it. That's where real hope lies. Not in the answer, but in the nearness of the one who holds the answer. So if you're in that place right now, where everything feels heavy and nothing makes sense, don't believe the lie that you have to wait for hope. Don't think you have to earn it by getting stronger or fixing yourself. You don't. You just have to be honest. Honest about where you are. Honest about what hurts. Honest about your need. And in that place of honesty, of brokenness, you will find that hope was already there. Waiting, whispering, holding on, because hope isn't what comes after the wound is healed. It's what holds you while the wound is still bleeding. Hope doesn't tell you to forget the past. It tells you the past doesn't get the final word. And hope doesn't promise an easy road. It promises a faithful companion, one who knows every crack in your heart, every tear you've cried in the dark, every breathless prayer you've whispered when no one else was listening. And he's still here, still working, still writing something worth waiting for. That's the kind of hope you can trust. That's the kind of hope that won't fail you, not because it makes life easy, but because it makes life possible, even in the breaking, even in the waiting, even in the ashes, especially in the ashes.